Hi, welcome to another episode of the Investor's Guide to Hard Money Lending, brought to you by CoreLend Financial. My name is Alyssa Fowler, and we have Cali Smith here with us. She is a local real estate investor. So welcome, Cali. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, we were just talking before the podcast, you have all things Memphis to this. So how long have you been here? How long have you been investing in real estate in Memphis?
So I moved to Memphis as a young girl. Started off in, I believe, 1999, straight from Atlanta, Georgia. Came here in Memphis, graduated from Craigmont High School.
Oh, nice.
From there, went to University of Memphis. Go Tigers, go. And I took on a degree of marketing. And then from marketing, I met my husband, Rico Smith, at University of Memphis. He kind of was doing more real estate. And then from there, I started to see so many deals, so many families being helped. And I was going to work 9 to 5. And I said, you know what? Let me learn a little bit about real estate. So it kind of just took off from there. 8 years licensed. I'm licensed in Tennessee and Mississippi. I work with investors from all across the world. So it's been a blessing.
Nice. Yeah, you and I have been in real estate about the same amount of time then. I've licensed Mississippi, Tennessee, and then 2017 was when.
Yes. And I've started with Kaizen. I've been with Kaizen, and it's grown my real estate business phenomenally.
Now tell me, because on real estate, dealing with the investment side, tell me how it's different than being an agent for an investor versus being an agent for, say, a retail, like a owner occupant.
Yes. So sometimes with agents, as mentioned, I get a lot of people that call from all around the world. So sometimes people are not as knowledgeable about Memphis, the areas, what we have to offer. Whereas sometimes your home buyers, they are more sufficient with what they actually want. Mm-hmm. So with investors, I kind of have to coach them a little more, advise them. I'm more so of a real estate advisor. Whereas with my home buyers, they're kind of straight on. They know what they want, and they just need a little more advising and a little more push behind them.
Well, and also too within investors, they're looking at, does it cash flow?
Yeah.
And where is the rest of their package? But you gotta look at when you've got an investor, you're not looking at just for that $100,000 sale. Mm-hmm. You could form a relationship that lasts for years.
Yes, and that's how my business thrives, 100% off of relationships. And I start with investors, of course, like I mentioned, I do on and off market properties. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I can find my investors off market properties, get it at a great discount, and I do work with a nice real estate team. So whether that's lenders like CoreLend, whether that's contractors, or a closing attorney, I can advise them, get that process started, and then once we get the flip going, put it back on the market, and here I am to sell it again.
Yes. Tell me, how are your flips going right now?
So as mentioned, I advise. In real estate, you have to know when to stop. Mm-hmm. And sometimes a lot of buyers, they have that cash, they have the capital, so they want to keep buying and buying, but not all times are great times to buy. So a lot of my real estate investors, I advise them probably 6 months, maybe a year ago, hold on to your cash. Let's see what the spring market goes and does. So right now, we have a few properties that have been sitting on the market, but because buyers are extremely picky, the price has to be right, the renovations have to be spot on. So for that, I would say a lot of them, they're selling, but they have to be hot commodities.
We were having this conversation, Richie and I were, about there's almost too much selection out there.
Yes, I agree. So let's say back 2020, 2021, mm-hmm. There was a lot of houses and there were a lot of buyers. And so it was an extreme seller's market. Now we're looking at a lot of houses and a lot of buyers, but we're in a buyer's market. They're picky on what they want in their houses. The criteria has to meet. Mm-hmm. I had a lady, she wanted gated community, a nice sized backyard. We got all of those things done. But when she pulled up to the neighborhood, it was a Sunday. A lot of cars were out on the street. And she said, nope, I don't want to check it out. So just that little bitty thing.
It's those little things. And it's almost like if one thing, and we're running into this because with us being hard money lender, we do have to take properties back, unfortunately, sometimes. But we've had the inspection period has been rough this go around.
Oh. So I tell my investors and my buyers, whoever, the highest offer isn't always the best offer. And a lot of times now we're getting these offers with 15-day inspection contingencies with another 10-day resolution. And I'm like, wait a second, is this cash? And what I've come to realize is that We have a lot of buyers right now in this market, and it's not until they are done with their due diligence, I would say, that they're seeing that, oh, I maybe can't afford this loan, or, oh, these points are a little higher than I expected. So we have some people who are bagging out days before closing, and I've experienced that a lot within the last, 3 months, I would say.
Yeah, I can see that because it's almost like they're almost afraid some of them are afraid of making the wrong decision because there's so many options out there where they almost get paralyzed and don't make any decision.
And that's why I said my biggest job is a real estate advisor. I'm a market person. I look at strategies, I look at numbers, and if it doesn't make sense, it's not something that I would personally recommend at all.
Yeah, it is. We are advisors because they're looking at, especially you deal with clients around the world. They're not here. A lot of times we're their boots on the ground here.
Exactly.
Or you are to be able to, is this a good buy? Or you can check it out in that area on that Sunday. Like, hey, here's a video. Here's a FaceTime call with that. This is what it looks like.
Yes. So the main thing is just like we said, those relationships, because even if you are on the ground, can they trust you to get a good video? Will you get ground to ceiling and actually show what's on that roof and, different things like that? So just being a great advisor and actually letting them know, hey, this is a good buy. The numbers make sense. This is your, repair estimate. All of those things they can take into consideration and help their, profit.
And that's a key thing because it's a numbers game at the end of the day. And you talk about you deal with a lot of off-market properties as well. Tell me what are how are you sourcing those? How are you finding those?
So 8 years in the business, 100% off of relationships. I still cold call. I am not afraid to pick up the phone. I think that's the biggest thing for me, cold calling in business, because a lot of people can say things over the phone and they get a little timid and they hang up. But me, I think that's the easiest conversation point. It's just, hey, how are you? Sometimes I'm even like, hey, Mike, it's Cali. And they're like, oh, hey, Cali, how are you? Yeah, how do I know her? So cold calling has still been my number one key thing.
And where are some of the pockets you're seeing some of these off-market deals where we're like, hey, you've got people like, yeah, I'm willing to sell to you?
So my biggest area, of course, always Bartlett, but 38107 has really, really made a comeback. The revitalizing that's going on right off of like Menances and all of that, Chelsea Avenue. People never used to buy on Chelsea. And now I have a nice few properties, 38107, 38108. Of course, 38109 has always been good out there as long as it's like a 3-2. But yeah, in 38111, everyone loves University of Memphis area. It's good for short-term rentals, good for investors. So I think that, those key points in those areas really do drive the dollars.
It does. And you talk about 38111, it's like, I graduated from University of Memphis as well, Sherwood Forest. That's where I had a ton of people friends that lived there. And you're seeing a resurgence in that area too.
Yes. I mean, what's going on throughout the city? It really looks good. I'm all for all the new construction that's being built. I'm all for all of the revitalizing because that's really helping people who have been in the community for years that haven't been able to, one, refinance, or two, just sell at a dollar that's worth what they put into their property.
Yes, that has been some of the biggest things, or these areas where, say in like the Soulsville area or in the Orange Mound area where you're seeing like they're finally seeing some appreciation in those areas.
Yes. So I think it's a wonderful thing because you have our history, roots of Memphis that have really grown in that area. Like you said, Soulsville, we still have a lot of historical places out there.
Yes.
In Whitehaven, 38116. Those property values are marvelous, but it's like, what are we going to put into our community to get things back out?
And that's the key. And it takes, a lot of times people don't realize that it takes investors to go in there and they are the trailblazers to go in there and taking a chance on that.
Yeah.
And yet I think we've seen some, I don't know if you've seen it, where it's kind of appraisals are getting a little tricky in some of these areas.
Alyssa, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So as mentioned, the market is heating up. It's an extreme buyer's market right now, but to each his own property. When the property is a hot commodity, you will get multiple offers. And I was just in a situation like that with a buyer. So we were in a multiple offer situation. I was working with the buyer. And as mentioned, the highest offer is not always the best offer.
Right.
There was not many supporting comps. And when I started to look at the comparable sales, I said, oh, this feels like pre-COVID or after COVID, like the market.
Yes.
We were pushing for 340 and the comps really did not support it. And I told my buyer, I said, hey, I want you to get this house. I don't want to remove all of your contingencies. We can clean up this contract, make the inspection period a little shorter, maybe not ask for repairs, those type of things. But we really needed closing costs. So we kept our 2% closing costs. I didn't budge on my commission. In this market, you really have to stand firm.
You have to stand firm. Yes, you do.
So, and we just went in with our best foot forward. So with the clean offer, we got our offer accepted. We did a 3-week closing, and I kid you not, the appraisal came back $30,000 less. And my client was on pins and needles. She thought the deal was dead, or she thought she wasn't going to get her closing cost assistance. But I still negotiated. I, provided proven points as to where I myself told him, hey, I don't know if this thing is going to appraise for this. And he said, hey, I agree. We were a little in over our head. We knew the market was heating up. We knew we did renovations. We thought we could get this number. So we ended up going to closing. We're going to be, closing with the same 2% in closing costs.
Nice.
And a $30,000 discount. So, hey, it is what it is on that. You
Nice
have to price it right.
Yeah, and I think the key, what you did, you prepared your buyer that this might not appraise. It's the fewer surprises, the better.
And my biggest thing was we could have went over listing price. We could have included our closing cost in the offer. But when that property didn't appraise, then the fingers would have been pointing back at me, because they would have said, well, hey, we listed it at this, but you went all over and offered this amount wanting to get closing costs. But because we stood our ground, we offered what it was actually listed at and just presented a clean contract, it worked out for both parties in the end.
And that's the thing is, especially on these owner of occupants, we're not in the days of where they're going to pay $30,000 over appraised value.
Oh, no. It was never going to be a conversation.
Yeah. But 3-4 years ago, yes.
Yes. And even, like I said, creative things. We may say, hey, we'll pay $2,000 over the appraised value. Hey, we'll pay $5,000 over the appraised value, just to kind of secure contracts. Thankfully, we haven't hit that part of the market just yet. But to be in that multiple offer situation and to have that appraisal, come in a little not what was expected, it definitely let me know that the season is heating up, but the appraisers are standing firm.
They are standing. Yes, they are.
Yes.
And that's what I've seen. And I've seen that across, it seems like all parts of real estate, not just the owner occupant, the larger ones.
Yes, multifamily,
single family residents that are like the investments, like the 150 or less, like they are tightening up everything.
And it's kind of needed, some people are not doing the BRR strategies. They're just, holding, and some can't. Some are first-time investors. They're not able to complete their renovations. They're not able to make their payments. And they are messing with the market in certain ways when they have to sell at such a low number. And then you have real buyers or real investors who are actually buying those 5 to 10 packet property deals who have to come in and correct those numbers. And a lot of times, even with CoreLend properties, sometimes that's what we have to do. We have to correct the market because of those high numbers that people have lent and aren't able to pay back.
Yes, and we've gotten stuck too where and then on the other side of that where, like say us as CoreLend on REO, we're not looking to break your records on it. We need to get this moved
off the books.
And so that can create a very low comp that it's a nicely redone property, but it's sold for this, and that's an actual comp, but we weren't looking to make a profit on it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the benefit of having those markets like 38111 that have so many active sales that have actually sold. You can kind of have a comparison value and kind of play the numbers game. Like, okay, yeah, this one was very close in square footage, but look at this one. It was built around the same year. Lot size is super similar. And sometimes if you do challenge those appraisals and have actually good comps and a breakdown of a formula, you'll have good luck, but it's very rare.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that 38111 zip code, though. You can, if you can go out a mile, you can pretty much find a comp that you want there.
Yeah, and I was dealing with one appraiser. He told me we can do up to a year back. And he allowed us to do pending sales. So that really helped one of the ones that we were kind of in limbo on pricing about. And And he allowed us to, accept a sale, but it was a land sale, so it was a little different.
And I think it's also balancing a fine line here to where, like we were talking about, there's so much revitalization going on. And we want to make sure those investors get credit for the work they do.
Yes.
So they'll continue to invest in those areas. Because like say if they've got 160 in it and then it appraises 140, how many more times are they going to do that?
Yeah, and they're not going to trust your advising. They're going to say, hey, I thought you said the resale value was going to be a little higher than this.
Right.
And you're going to have some explaining to do,
Right.
So.
And that's what I don't know about you, but it's talking to people like, well, you can do this, but I wouldn't do over this.
Yeah, and that's why I said if I personally would not buy it, I would not advise someone to buy it. Now, what you do with your capital and your money, that's your business, but please don't come running back in 2 years crying, saying, hey, Cali, we need to get rid of this property because I was in over my head,
Right.
And it's same thing with burnouts. I have buyers who love burnouts, and I have some who get those burnouts and they really get stuck with them. And it's just doing proper due diligence, actually getting your contractor there to walk it, give you actual numbers, not just estimates.
And there's still going to be contingencies on that,
yes,
because you're going to run into stuff.
Yes, all the time. So, and just overall, even with appraisals and making sure the proper permits were done, it's just so many things that come into that. And so for that reason, I always tell people I can advise you to do this, but it's totally your decision.
Yeah, and we kind of do that at CoreLend where you don't get the approval. We didn't fund all the purchase price. That means we think you're paying too much.
Yeah, and so as mentioned, my husband Rico Smith, he has introduced me to real estate in so many ways. And one of our first few flips with CoreLend, it was that situation. They did not want to fund the whole deal. And I couldn't understand why. So I'm like, hey, Richie, what's going on? And he broke it down to me and we walked away from that deal. And that's a blessing because now you know that if they wouldn't buy it, why should you?
Right.
Now, sometimes if you can make numbers work, like we did have a very nice property in 38128, the house next door sold for a great number. And being that it was right next door, I felt super confident about it. But some lenders didn't. We took a chance on it and it worked out. So there's always that risk in real estate, but that's what gives you the motivation to keep going sometimes,
And it's the level of risk you're comfortable with.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yes, for these first time ones coming in, it's like, let's not shoot for the moon the first time you're coming in.
I agree. And sometimes when I'm looking at properties, like if I say, oh, this is a beautiful property, let me look more into it. Or, hey, I have a buyer interested, let me look into this property. I can kind of tell once someone has been like a first time investor or just kind of getting into the Memphis market. Sometimes when you are going overboard on renovations, by all means do it. It makes the property so beautiful. I personally love quartz countertops.
Oh, yes.
I love to see it. I love gold accents. I love it all. But when I'm walking into a property that's in a different zip code and I see those things, I'm like, oh, okay, I can understand why we're in this situation. You went a little bit over your budget for your renovations. Yes, for sure. And even when it comes down to appraisals, you have properties that can help your house and you have some properties that can hurt your house. Even when you do have top of the line renovations, if there's not many to compare, where are you left?
Right, because it's the appraisers, they've got to be able to answer for that, how they come up with that number.
Exactly. The depreciation value really is taken into effect when there's only one of your nice, beautiful properties and the entire street isn't there yet.
You're the trailblazer to go in there and do it, but you're probably not going to get all the credit for it this first time around.
Exactly. And so as a real estate advisor, I would just probably advise you to hold on to the property for now if you can, collect rent, and then when the street is a little more put together, then we can look into selling and seeing what you can get on the back end.
Yeah, I agree with you. And on those first time ones too, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure you'd look at this of like gauge your client, really get to know them of like, because some of them think this is a great deal. Like, yes, it is, but we need a more seasoned investor to buy this here in Memphis.
Yeah, and what may be a good deal for me may not be a good deal for you.
Right.
A lot of times. And that goes back to who's on your team. Do you have a good contractor? Is your contractor actually going to, give you a fair ball between $15,000 to $25,000 for each rehab? Do you have a set strategy and do you have a plan? When you go in, are you laying the same towel? Do you have leftovers? Those type of things really do take into effect on your cost.
It is. And it's those first time ones, it's like, get your team in place before you take on the really challenging, because some of those ones that are really great deals, but it's also a lot higher risk too.
Yes. And I have investors that, like I said, they call from all over the world sometimes. And I do not mind advising, and I do not mind literally holding your hand sometimes and just walking you through everything, whether it's finding you a good contractor, finding the off-market property for you to flip. I don't mind doing all those things. But one thing I don't like, I don't want to be held liable for your contractor if I did not recommend them. If he runs off with your money, that's based off your relationship. So when you work with Cali and I refer my team, I know for sure that these are trusted individuals. You're in good hands. And then at that point, I think you'll be, okay in this market.
And you're right about that, because I know it was my husband was helping somebody. It was an apartment complex on Looney. So in like near downtown. And it's like things kept going over budget on things. And so finally towards the end, he goes to like Facebook Marketplace to find something. What do you know? Not a week later, he's getting stuff stolen out of him, because it's like he tried to save money and it cost him a lot more money.
Yes. I just seen something that said in Memphis and surrounding areas now, we are going for larger AC cages. We're waiting to put appliances in. If that means we have to board up a few windows, so be it, because you have to protect your investment.
You do. I was watching somebody on it where it's now they're putting voltage on the cages.
I would love to see that. Someone should put a video right there. As soon as you try, you just get like buzz.
Yes, but it's like you're having to get even more creative of doing it. And then they had another 8-foot fence around that in case of kids or whatever. But it's like when you start losing 2 or 3 of those, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And the biggest thing is it puts a bad taste in home buyers' mouth as well. If sometimes, like, I've shown properties and I say, hey, we're going to put the appliances in at the end, or hey, we're having to, board this up because we don't want people to come in here and take appliances. They're like, well, where am I moving? So I think it just goes back to our overall, like, where are you investing? What are you looking for out of your property? Are you looking for long-term rentals? Are you just trying to buy and flip? What are you taking into consideration? Because then you'll probably need to take into consideration getting cameras, getting those voltage cages, just different type of things.
It is. And it sounds, and I know that can somebody first come in to look like, oh, that sounds really bad. Is this really? No, it's not really that dangerous. It is the sense of where people, these, illegal entrepreneurs, they go in there and they're not going to do it, say, if the homeowner's there or the person's there.
Yeah.
It's like a crime of opportunity. This is vacant. I'm not hurting anyone.
Yes. And it's unfortunate.
It is
but
unfortunate.
A lot of times, not even just in our market, in the best markets, you have people who do crazy things. Contractors may get mad. They don't get their money all the time and they come back and do all type of things. It's just the risk of real estate. But that goes back to making sure you're like very strong on your relationships. You're not doing people dirty. You're a woman, a man of your word. All of those things matter with longevity. And especially in this Memphis market, we're a tight market.
We are.
We're a very tight market.
We're a big, small town.
Yeah. And I love it. It's like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, they fixed my cousin's brother's driveway. It's like, oh, okay, great. So I think having a good relationship, keeping your name clean, all of those things matter for longevity in the Memphis real estate market.
It is. I mean, you can build that network quick. You can build it quickly if you're if you're a man of your word or a person of your word. But you will get run out of town very quickly too, because word travels quickly.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about being a good person.
Yes.
Because those that are on the good side, those referrals and the support, that doesn't go unseen. That doesn't go unnoticed. Just being in real estate for 8 years, I've never paid for marketing besides direct mail. And that's to help bring in clients. But as far as like Zillow leads and things of that sort, I'm proud to say that all of my business is based off referrals. And for that, even with a $3.7 million listing, you know that you are treating people right. They can trust you and you're not just dollar driven. You're actually, caring about what you're doing. It shows. So
it absolutely does. And it's like you said you had $3.7 million listing and you're down. You can also deal with a $20,000 listing. And it's also, I think it goes a long way to treating those customers, those clients the same, giving the same level of care.
Of course, of course. That's the main thing. Everyone is in the business for the same thing. You want a return on your investment. You want to feel like you're making the right decision. And in the end, you want to just, own property, make money, and hopefully pass it down from generations to come. And you need people that are trustworthy and you can, call on or text if you're like up late at night, just like, hey, can you run these numbers? This is like boggling my mind. Just look into it for me. It's like just being your home friend, your home girl, like just helping you out in any way that's real estate driven.
And you're right. You really do become the trusted advisor of those people and they follow you. And if you've done them right, they will stay with you. And you've done 30 deals with them now.
Listen, Alyssa, I have one couple and forgive me, we're friends, so it's okay I say this. She came to me when she was engaged. They got married. They got divorced. I sold both of those houses. She came back to me when she got remarried. And hopefully this is good.
Hopefully we're good.
But now they're looking into investing. And we weren't friends, initially. We became friends through real estate. Going through a life-changing thing with someone such as getting engaged and married, then getting a divorce and having to help them go through that process. That's a lot. And they can't even count and call on some of their family members. But to call on your realtor and say, hey,
you're like a therapist.
Yeah, this is what I'm going through. This is how much I'm going to need. All of those things matter. And, just having a clean name and doing people right, that's how you're going to have longevity and just staying focused in the real estate business.
Yeah. Well, no, like with y'all too, because don't Rico just some students and get followers for doing that?
Yes. So he's done that for 10 plus years.
Right.
Just real estate coaching, wholesale real estate coaching, helping people with self-development, just telling yourself that you can do this and, just introducing people to new ways of receiving income. Some people don't know you can actually flip a house with little to no money.
Right.
But you have to have good relationships. You have to be willing to outwork the work, get in there, cold call, get on those Facebook marketplace posts and introduce yourself. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. So yes, anything that is real estate related, whether it's wholesale real estate, flipping, investing, on market, off market, land, commercial, we have tapped into it and we are just fully thriving off of referrals.
Yeah. And that's rare because so many agents and so many real estate, they get into where it's like they're just going to focus on this one section or this one area or this, and you do it all.
We do, but it was over time. We both are one of those people who we believe focus on your niche. Whatever your niche may be, focus on that, and then find out your why. Because once you are wearing multiple hats, it can be exhausting. And if you're just dollar driven, you're probably not going to last long because there's some months you might not get a deal. So,
right.
For those reasons, you definitely have to have multiple streams of income. And I learned that fresh in real estate, this is a field that pays to play. You have to have a backbone in real estate. When I first got in real estate, I thought I was going to quit my 9-to-5 and just start showing and selling houses. It was not that easy.
No.
Not at all.
No, it's not. And you see, and it's so crazy. You see the shifts in market where, in 2020, it was a seller's market and it was the buyer's agents where you'd see the Barbie memes of what they looked like at the beginning of the listing agents looking all pretty and the buyer's agents looking and it's kind of flip-flop now.
Yes, 100%. At first, listing agents would not return your phone call. You would not know there was a multiple offer situation unless it was just, they were giving you a courtesy. They'll send out an email and highest and best, that's it. They wouldn't even answer their phone to answer questions for you. Now, they will blow you up.
It's the opposite.
And I'm one of them. I've always answered my phone, but after a showing, I'm going to call you. I'm going to text you. I'm going to send the feedback notification. I'm looking for feedback. I need to know, why did your buyer not choose this house? What can we do to get your buyer to buy this house?
And then sometimes that feedback, it is I needed this because this is exactly what I've been telling them.
Yes, 100%. I love to screenshot or just hit that little share button and send it over hey, I told you
You're
your
so-
price was a little high. Or, hey, I told you we should have, painted X, Y, and Z or removed that tree. It's little things like that. It really does help. So, kudos and shout out to all the agents who provide feedback.
Yes, that is just wonderful because the sellers now are going to, they didn't care a few years ago. They were going to get offers. Now they're wondering, where is it?
Yes.
And so if you keep that consistency, it goes a long way too of your reputation.
Yes, my clients, anytime we have a showing, like for my home buyers or owner occupants, they receive a text message to approve the showing. So once they're done, they're like, hey, Cali, did you get the feedback? If I haven't sent it yet, they're like, hey, we're anticipating it. What did they say? So now they're looking for it, and I love it. It just keeps everything copacetic, keeps us on the same page. And like you said, it helps support what I may have already advised you to do.
Yes. Well, tell me, is there anything else you'd like to talk about your business, you and Rico's business?
Let's see. So we have really just been trying to grow our relationships and learn who's who in today's market. As stated, there's a lot of people who probably were buying a few years back, but they seen it wasn't the right time, or they may have gotten in a little over their head and they're just not buying anymore. So we're just really trying to grow our relationships, whether that's finding new title companies who can actually do the work. Sometimes when you have bad files, the title company just throws it away. And a lot of times I try to work through those problems. If I have to call the courthouse myself or go down there and get a death certificate, it's those type of things that I find helps our business, because you're not just turning your clients away because of a bad title. You're working through those issues. So that's really what we've been all about. Just continue to grow our relationships and meet the new people that are in today's market, because they're out there.
They're out there, and I'm starting to see some ones that have been sitting on the sidelines jumping back in.
Yes, and that's exciting to see. As mentioned, I'm just happy that people are actually starting back to buy. I'm loving to see the people that are serious buyers. A lot of times, even on my personal investment properties, I've gotten pre-approvals or pre-qualifications for DSCR loans, but have you actually done the paperwork? Have you ran your numbers? Because those are some of the buyers who are bagging out at the last minute.
And those are, you can speak to this too, but those are not as easy to go through. Those DSCR, they take longer. The underwriting is stricter for anything, and it's a process, and you've got to be on your P's and Q's for those.
One thing I noticed with those is transparency. Anytime we're doing a DSCR loan, I always try to get us to close with the same closing attorney, because the transparency is needed. People will switch lenders so many times because they're not getting the answers they're wanting, or their interest rate is a little higher, or they're having more points, just so many different things. And they're not transparent in letting you know, like, hey, we're switching lenders. So I always try to stick with the same attorneys for both sides so we can have complete transparency. Because like you said, a lot of things can change with those loans. And I don't know if someone just has an automated computer system and they're just typing people names and giving them these pre-qualifications. But like I said, over the last 3 months, there was a few buyers who were not able to perform. So
I know, which stinks, because you're usually pretty far into the process at that point. Like you said, a few days before closing, it could have been tied up for 45 days already.
Yeah, and I think with the proper closing attorney and just, keeping those relationships strong, they can help you vet out who's serious and who's not. Because if I'm your closing attorney and I'm asking you for your documents, your LOC stuff, and you're not sending me any documents, that's a red flag, And sometimes I've gotten to that point where I'm like, hey, did you ever get this information? And they're like, no, we tried, we just couldn't. And that's the point of having transparency and having both people at the same office so we can, get the same objective done to close.
And it takes that. And you talk about that. When we just closed, we funded for CoreLend in Birmingham. And I saw that this borrower with us, but he was trying every which way to get out of this deal, but to still get their earnest money back. And it was finally of a communication. Oh, we're copying everybody involved in this whole process on this email, and everything's going to be documented. Now we closed and funded when we dragged that buyer across the finish line, but it was the transparency of like, we're all working together.
Yeah, and that's needed sometimes. And I always tell, being on both sides of the field, whether it's on and off market, buyers or sellers, listing agent or buyer's agent, I always tell people we have the same goal, and that's to get to the closing table.
Yes.
So let's just work together, not against each other. That's even when it comes down to those repairs, like, let's work together, not against each other.
I always tell people, like, it's, when you get to the repair phase, you were calling somebody's baby ugly. And it's, first starting out, younger realtor, like I said, I've been in the business like 8 years. So I think I was, what am I, 20? No, I'm not 20 anything. I'm 32 now. Sorry. So yeah, I say, hey. I'm used to saying, hey, like just, hey. Even in a text message, I'll say, hey, with 2 Y's maybe. And this realtor was so mad at me from the repairs. She said, hay is for horses. Oh.
So, I can agree with you. Like in that repair stage, yeah, there's some difficult relationships being done at that time. But the main point is we make it out. We make it to closing. And I always tell people, thank you for the opportunity to work with you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. Because, it has been a pleasure because we closed it.
Yes. And I don't have to talk to you right now anymore.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us, Cali. It's been great having you on here. And thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.